Okay, so I'm a little late to the party thanks to a cold, but there is absolutely no way I'm not gonna make a video talking about my most anticipated piece of tech this year, the Analogue Pocket. I've covered a few different analog products in the past. They are very nice, but also very pricey ways of being able to play your favorite old school game cartridges on modern TVs with a lot of awesome upgrades for a very beautiful image. They first released the Analogue NT, which was a very expensive but very nice way of playing original Nintendo and Famicom games. Later, they did the more affordable, slimmed down Super NT that played Super Nintendo and Super Famicom, and a couple years back, they released a system focused on the Sega Genesis with the Mega SG. And now they've released the Pocket, a handheld device that is focused on allowing you to use Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advanced games, as well as Game Gear games while making use of an adapter. And this stands as being probably the most unique thing they've actually released so far due to two major things. First off, because this is the first analog product that is a handheld system, it has its own built-in display. And second off, this is really the first analog product that really opens up additional functionalities, especially through the use of a few related accessories, most notably a dock, giving it basically a Switch-style feature of swapping between handheld and TV gameplay. Full disclosure, I did get my hands on the Analogue a little earlier thanks to a review kit that was sent out that included the system along with all of its various accessories. I do want to throw out though that before I even knew this thing was arriving, I did place an order for the system way back when pre-orders opened up in 2020 and did order one back then. So this is something that I was very excited about and wanted to mess around with either way. The review kit has just given me a really handy way of messing around with it a little longer, earlier, and play with some of the accessories that I didn't order. I went into using this with already pretty high expectations of what the experience could be like because I'd already had such a good experience with their past products, and even then, the Pocket really did manage to surprise me with just how good it looks, especially for Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. And a large part of this really has to do with the system's display. Like with other analog products, the Pocket does make use of what's known as an Fpga, basically something that allows for the system at a hardware level to emulate and act like the system it is trying to play the games of. So basically, as far as the Game Boy carts inserted into the system are concerned, they are running on original hardware. That's what enables it to really play these games in such a seamless way. But the display is really what pushes it to a whole new level. This is a 1440p resolution screen that is only 3.5 inches diagonal. Given because it is a Game Boy screen, it's 10:9, but that ends up resulting in 615 dpi, a wildly sharp image that if you calculate the actual best viewing distance of, you have to get closer than 6 inches to really start making out some of the finer details. This makes gameplay in the Pocket incredibly crisp. What's really nice about this too though is not just how good the image looks, but how much customization and control you have over it in order to kind of shape the experience that you want to have on the system. Basically, whenever you pop in any game on the system, the default display mode is going to be the Analogue Pocket mode, where it's just showing the image on display. It's going to look very clean, very nice, and give you some customization options like adjusting sharpness if you do want to have it a little blurrier to feel like an older system. You can change saturation for the color system, so if you want to tone down the colors a bit, you have that option as well. But along with this, you're able to switch between a number of different pre-configured modes that mimic the look of playing on original hardware systems. So for instance, while you're playing an original Game Boy game, you can switch over to a DMG Game Boy style where you're going to see that dot matrix style pixelation with a green background. Or you can switch over to a Game Boy Pocket or a Game Boy Light where the color values are a bit different. For Game Boy in particular, you even have the option to mess around with a couple different color palette options, so you can do that kind of look that you'd get with playing a Game Boy game on the Game Boy Color, where it applies that very limited color palette to it. This of course applies to later systems as well, with the Game Boy Color option allowing you to play it like it would look on a Game Boy Color, and the Game Boy Advance giving you the choice between either a regular GBA or a GBA SP, where it mimics that backlight look by just brightening it up a little more and adding a bit more pop to the colors. Now, in my own personal experience, I have preferred playing most of these games in just the regular Analogue Pocket mode. I think with the sharpening applied and everything, the games just look absolutely great on it. But if you wanted to really try to recapture the look and style of those games on a particular past hardware, having that option is really nice. One thing that's really cool too is that there's a lot of Game Boy games out there that made use of very special additional features inside of the cart. For instance, an internal time clock like in Gold and Silver, motion controls for certain games, and even a solar sensor. And most of these the Pocket will work with. The one exception is the solar sensor. So for instance, Boktai, a Game Boy Advance game that involved being able to notice when you're outdoors in the sun, will not work with the Pocket, at least in terms of that functionality. However, other games like say Kirby's Tilt and Tumble that makes use of gyro controls worked perfectly fine. With the build quality of the system, along with a shape and design like a Game Boy, but with additional buttons on the front face and of course triggers on the back, this really has become for me the way I'm going to play Game Boy games moving on. I love my older handhelds and I'm going to hold on to them for the sake of nostalgia and the fact that they are the collection that I've grown, but in terms of just actually playing these games now, I don't see myself really using them in place of the Pocket. So the Pocket by itself, great experience. But again, where things get really interesting is additional options that are opened up with the variety of accessories that are available for the system as well. Now, I did not make full use of all of these because honestly, it's just not really in my personal wheelhouse. In particular, there's a lot of stuff you can do with Nano Loop, which allows you to program music using the system, which is not something I'm really proficient in. What I did focus on trying out using though were the Pocket cable, the Game Gear adapter, and of course the dock. The Pocket cable is a pretty straightforward concept. It is a brand new cable that works with your Pocket that works the same as some of the later Game Boy link cables. So for instance, you can take that cable to hook up your analog to a GBA and trade Pokemon in Pokemon games, or move over a clear save file in one game like say Golden Sun over to Golden Sun Lost Age. Anything that you would use a link cable for on the Game Boy is what the Pocket cable is used for. The Game Gear adapter opens up the ability to play Game Gear games. Like with the other Game Boy games, you have various visual settings you can mess with to adjust the image, along with the additional option of choosing between either a fit style display or a 4:3. The reason for this choice is because the original Game Gear actually stretched the image out a little bit with the way the display was designed. So you can play in a way that emulates that look in 4:3, or you can switch to the fit option, which is a more pixel perfect approach, which does look good, but honestly for recreating the look of the Game Gear, I do like that 4:3 option more. It's how I remember those games looking. But the one accessory I really spent the most time with and I want to talk about for a bit is the dock. I titled this video the Game Boy Switch, or at least that's one of the main titles I've really been toying around in my head right now. We'll see what happens when the video goes live. But I call it that because, not simply because the dock opens up the ability to, put the Game Boy games on a big screen TV, but because the dock functionality really does feel a lot like using a Nintendo Switch in all the best ways possible. For instance, you can be playing a game on the Pocket, drop it in the dock mid-gameplay, and it is going to switch over to the TV, and you can pick up a controller that you've synced with it to start playing right away seamlessly. You could turn the Pocket off while it's sitting in the dock, and using the wireless controller that you've synced, you can turn the controller on, it'll wake up the dock, and then bam, you're ready to play games right away, just like it would work with a Switch. Yes, just simply being able to put games on the screen by itself is already a great thing, but it's this overall ease of use that I really appreciate and like about the system. Now, with the dock again, you can sync a wireless controller. Currently, it is limited to primarily the 8-bit-do controllers, which I've been using the 8-bit-do Pro 2. That tracks the past of other analog systems, which I've always compared with 8-bit-do systems. However, it has been noted that in future updates, I think they said timed for sometime early next year, they're going to add additional functionalities so you can pair things like, say, a Switch Pro controller or an Xbox controller. While displayed on your TV screen, you do still have some options you can toy around with, not the same full-run ones that you have in Pocket mode. For instance, you can't, say, activate the Game Boy mode where it looks like it would on a Game Boy, but you do still have the sharpness options so you can adjust how the games look. I do find that actually reducing that a tiny bit works in favor for some Game Boy Advance games. Generally for Game Boy and Game Boy Color, I just like the sharpness maxed out. You can also adjust the aspect ratio of the image. More importantly, you can change the resolution, so if you want to try and fit the whole screen, you can, or if you'd rather keep it to just a simple 6x so that it preserves the overall look of the image as best as possible, that is a choice as well. Now, I will say, while I do really like the ease of access to the dock is also one thing I do have a bit of a problem with on the system, and that has to do with just the physical design of the dock itself. I get why it's the way it is. It's a very nice way of displaying the Pocket. It's kind of on show while it is being used in the dock. Not to mention the fact that the dock itself is absolutely the Analogue logo, just laying down on its side rather than standing up. But a problem that comes with it is the fact that the system wobbles around a little bit in a way that I'm not fully comfortable with. This is actually something that was brought up when the dock was first announced, and the original design just had a flat bottom with a USB-C port sticking out, and a lot of people did not like that. And so the way they fixed that was by thickening the dock a little more and then adding a grooved space that the Pocket sits in. This does help with that problem, but doesn't really fully get rid of it. So as a result, if you're ever messing with the Pocket while it's in the dock, for instance, maybe you want to switch what carts are sitting in it, it's gonna wobble around a little bit, which is something I don't really like the feeling of. Now, there's an easy enough workaround for this. You just undock the system, change carts, redock it, not a big deal. And I recommend that's what anyone does who gets one of these systems, because just that little bit of wobble over time is something I don't really like happening to the port. While I'm already talking negatives, there is something else about the system that does bother me a little bit. It's not really a negative about the system itself as much as it is a missed opportunity in my opinion, and that has to do with the carrying case. You can buy a hard case that goes with the system that is really just meant to protect the Pocket itself and also show it off at the same time. The Pocket will sit in it, it's a clear case, it's nice. The problem though is it doesn't really fulfill, in my mind, what a carrying case should do for the system. It carries the Pocket by itself with one game slotted inside of it, not if that game is a Game Gear game, because that changes the overall dimensions of the system. Whereas instead, I really wish there was an option available where you could say, carry around the Pocket, plus some additional carts, plus the adapter, maybe even a larger case that accommodates the dock. There's a lot of things that go into being able to use this system on the go that you can't really do with the hard case that you can buy. Again, not really a problem with the core system itself, just something I think could have been a little more functional in design. Overall, if you couldn't tell by now, my opinion of the system is very positive. But that does also beg the very important question of, yes, it's really cool, but is it worth the price point? Especially considering the fact that new orders that are now available for the system are more expensive than the ones that opened up back in 2020. And the answer in my mind is yes. I think there is definitely room to hold off on some of the accessories depending on what you're into. Again, I feel like the hard case doesn't quite do the job it needs to do. The link cable is a bit more of a special situation kind of thing. Really, as far as accessories go, I think the ones that really stand out the most are the Game Gear adapter to open up that whole additional library, and then the dock, which I do really like, but something I want to emphasize is that really, ultimately, I see myself using this in handheld mode the vast majority of the time. I love the functionality that the dock adds. I think that having that option is really cool and being able to pair it with a wireless controller, but games look so good on the Pocket display that it almost actually feels like a disservice to play them on a larger screen, because that very high resolution small screen does such an excellent job of capturing the feeling of playing on an older system while also elevating it to something new. Now, the one kind of bad news about all this is that if you have been paying attention to Pocket stuff, or if this is your first time learning about it, is the fact that while, yes, they are still taking orders for these, they're shipping them in waves, and by this point, the delivery time is very far out. I think placing an order right now puts you somewhere in 2023, so it's a little bit of a wait, but honestly, for me personally, if I knew all the things I know about the hands-on experience with the system but didn't have one on hand yet, it's a wait that I think is worth waiting for. So those are my thoughts on the Analogue Pocket. It really is a beautiful piece of tech. If you want to learn more about it, if you want to maybe put an order for the ones that are going to be a little bit of a long wait, I do have a link to the website down below in the description. As always, if you enjoyed this video, like it, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys later.